your destiny.
Hey guys, this is the Ecron Writer here, welcoming you to another Mortal Kombat epic, as well as the third installment of my Mortal Kombat Chronology series. And this one happens to be, in case you can't tell with the theme, it takes place in the events of Mortal Kombat 4, specifically Gold, which is the Dreamcast version, which is like an expansion of the original ports, even the last Mortal Kombat arcade game, because Deadly Alliance, it didn't have one. So, this is actually ironic because I never played the Dreamcast, but still, Mortal Kombat Gold, I had to do a lot of research on it, because when I was 10, when I played the N64 version, it was my first Fallout, and this was before Annihilation. So, unlike Shaolin Monks Part 2, this was really tough to put together. You'll see why. So let's get this thing going. Alright, Shinnok's Uprising. After a long hiatus along with some random brainstorming, I'm back with another installment. You guys voted I shall continue on from Shaolin Monks Part 2 on Twitter, but this was a tumultuous work. The thing was, I wasn't into MK4, and it was my first Fallout with the series. I never cared for Deadly Alliance, Deception, nor Armageddon. And yeah, 97 was indeed the Mortal Kombat Dark Ages per se. This one in particular was uninspiring, it felt awkward, and it just shunned me out, amongst other things that kept me occupied, such as Diddy Kong Racing, Star Fox 64, Dante's Peak, my first year being introduced to Toonami, and Annihilation was a sort of guilty pleasure. Actually, I really thought it'd provide finality to the series till this came into existence. Needless to say, I want to get this project out of the way as soon as possible, thanks to the votes on my online polls, and my mind never shutting up. So, on with the Uprising, but I need to cover a prologue to patch things up. So here we are. 2 years had passed since the events of the Earthrealm invasion led by Shao Kahn, followed by Liu Kang's victory winning over the Conqueror. After the cursed champion decided to leave the motherland in hopes on finding more recruits of a new generation of Shaolin monks, he left Kung Lao to care for their legacy. He and Aiko went on their first date and soon met up with the Elder God of Wind, Fujin, who wished to increase Lao's potential as second-best champion, and even surpassing his ancestor. Since then, Kung Lao had been training periodically under Fujin's tutelage at the Wind World, advancing his aerokinesis. Lao's and Aiko's relationship continued to blossom, and Nightwolf had installed high-tech surveillance throughout the Wuxi Academy to prevent any future disasters contrary to the sudden and deadly Tarkon attack. Liu Kang occasionally visited his people along with the newly enlisted members of the Shaolin. He also visited the Neo-Kingdom of Edenia, and much like his successor mingling with Aiko, he'd hang out with Princess Katana in his downtime via the infrequent portals conjured by Raiden. At one time, the Special Forces caught wind of the state-of-the-art ingenuity involving the Dragon Jet that their agent, Sonya and Jax, possessed. Uh-oh. Creating more capable fighter jets and thusly increasing America's defenses, while also having Clinton's presidency as dreaded by Aiko winning the war over Somalia, and against other foreign countries rather than for other realms. Well, there's one positive. Kuai Liang, along with his surrogate brother Thomas Verbata, otherwise known as Smoke, were still in the process of forming the Lin Kuei. With the Grandmaster and his promising assassin Sector deceased, the ninja organization began to crumble. It was then that the process of becoming cybers gained a reputation on being unorthodox and inhumane, nearly costing lives of the participants. However, inspired by Nightwolf's success in reverting Smoke human, they initiated a different program enabling volunteers to wield both their organic and metallic portions, with the internal organs remaining untouched. The surgical procedure shortly fell out of favor, as not too many subjects participated, even though it wasn't only optional, but also expensive to the Lin Kuei's finances and safety. Since then, only Smoke remained as their topmost agent in both fashions. Cyrex hasn't been spotted as of yet, though the topmost warriors believed he'd still reside in Earthrealm. You'll see him later, so it's not pointless filler. The promising royals of Edenia were still in the process of regaining all the resources and territories they lost during Khan's 10,000-year-old conquest. About a third of Outworld was restored and separated from the bustling kingdom. Thanks to their new advisor Shiva, the Shokan rapidly took on the side of peace rather than combat. Upon Motoro's curse, the centaurs had been reducing in numbers. Very few members had actually allied with their bitter rivals. Since then, the process of restoring Neo-Edenia was slow, but very successful, and Katana herself was going through peace talks involving both warmongering races. With vague visions of war involving the Elder Gods, Fujin took charge and trained Kung Lao, who was willing to enhance his prowess in aerokinesis. Aiko also decided to come along as well. During Fujin's sessions, she sometimes figured it was best to stick with the Wind God, as she no longer had to worry of her astrophobia. In one session during a heart melt within the Temple of Light, Aiko noticed she withdrew her heart abilities as she aged and had a lot of bitter experiences with incompetence, abuse, and neglect. She once assured Jin as he would grow up to be a great warrior like his uncle and must carry on their legacy of the great Kung Lao. The 8-year-old had enlisted in a karate class and attended all of 1st and 2nd grade well. Sometimes he'd have Aiko as a personal tutor. It was thanks to the Kungs and the monks' lessons on enlightenment that enabled her heart and mind to open up like an egg. All that mattered was using her mind as well as her heart. However, all her abilities required a great deal of stamina. Each moment left her breathless. She and Kung Lao noticed her powers had limits, and she couldn't use it on certain kinds of enemies such as shadows and the undead, or simply those that were too resistant, though Sindel was a slight exception. Well, as you would see in my last epic. Raiden mentioned in the past the Queen was still a living being, an Edenian, thus disabling her devastating shrieks while the combatants were infiltrating Khan's tower. Recently, the monks and Nightwolves invented her own battle armor in multiple shades, such as crimson, lime green, and bright cerulean. Or turquoise. Mostly turquoise. She teamed her own club detached from a tail of an ankylosaur from the best artisans. She'd been practicing on all assets of combat, even to basic hand-to-hand by Lao. Things seemed to have gone well for each of the distant combatants, those earthbound and no. However, cracks began to form within the subconscious of a few unfortunate victims. There were some late evenings in which Kung Lao, Aiko, or even Nightwolf would have disturbing nightmares. They happened to have similar sinister elements to them, including a tall, ominous man in dark, colorful robes with a matching hat and blue skin, holding a powerful staff and sneering down at one of his prey, though they could never tell what the stranger would do. They'd also be standing outside a massive temple of sorts, or sometimes inside a chamber with exotic innards of fire and decorative frames. At the exterior there were endless downpours. The onlookers felt as if there was a war raging in the sky, which was accompanied by sudden storms. The one that was terrified the most was the cardiokinetic, as she once remembered seeing that same silent maniac in her dystopian future with the undead legion of former heroes. She'd grown paranoid she'd be one of his many victims. She did mention that mysterious man to Fujin in Lao's most previous session. The wind elemental identified him as Shinnok, the fallen elder god of death and destruction who was imprisoned in the Netherrealm several millennia ago. He, Raiden, and other beings of higher power had their hands full, and even many Saurians were wiped out during the scrimmage when it invaded the heavens, Earthrealm, and Zetira respectively. The elementals gave off all their strength, and since an elder god can never die, he was instead sealed within an ancient amulet. Well, actually, his powers... Actually, I kind of screwed that up. It was an MKX. But basically, his powers were stored in the amulet. At first, Aiko figured Shinnok was the father of Raiden and Shao Kahn, with the latter two as brothers. Where did you hear that? Aiko simply rubbed the back of her neck. Let's just say a certain movie inspired by the tournaments would mess up their backstories a few years from now. The monk just dismissed it as he rolled his eyes. Regardless of its inaccuracies, I can't help but foretell those night terrors must be bad omens of what is to come. Of what? You think they have to do with a war? A rematch with the fallen elder god? Verily, the three of you has felt it. All the realms seem to have gotten unnerving before the inevitable conflict. If they happen to be forewarnings, I fear that after so many centuries, Shinnok may have risen again. This put both Kung Lao and Aiko Crackle on high alert. What must we do? All his new mentor did was stare into the sky, seeing a large dark mass ever growing. The disciples weren't sure if either they felt sudden sharp chills down their spines, or if the air suddenly dropped. Fujin's eyes grew wide, showing its white irises. Oh no! It can't be! It must be Shinnok! After all these centuries! Fujin! There must be something we can do! Let us assist you! Ah, fuck. I did the wrong voice. Fujin! There must be something we can do! Let us assist you! All the elderly man faced the duo and raised an arm. No! He looked as if he was going to blow them off the balcony. You two must not get involved. You must return to the Wuxi Academy. Before the cowboy look-alike said any more objections, he and Aiko were silenced while they were warped almost instantly by a funnel blinding them. All Fujin did was gaze onto the bloating mass, until it too burst into lightning, thunder, and torrents of rain. The same moments that were in the hero's dreams. It has begun. I guess the intro to that, it's the songs, basically. MK4 wasn't really all that special to me ever since I was around 10-ish. As I stated, there were several other factors that got my attention, and everything seemed lackluster and dull. Nothing seemed inspiring, and it didn't feel as high-octane nor immersive as the original 3 games. I wasn't sure where to go with this, and I never knew gold existed till it was pointed out by 616 Entertainment's History of Mortal Kombat. I felt unconfident as he said it's mediocre, slow, dated, the staff was experiencing fatigue, and mythologies complicated things even more. The light at the end of the tunnel was the video I found recently, MK Temple's Mortal Kombat's History Part 8. That one vid about the Netherrealm War was a lifesaver. Otherwise it'd be lost and it wouldn't have made this story happen. So thank you very much. At first I was disappointed that Kung Lao wasn't featured till Gold came out. Everyone stated the N64 version was best for some odd reason on my poll. Speaking of the Shaolin, I'd see him train under Fujin, Raiden's younger brother and Wind Elder God. I wish the devs had some inspiration to have them function as a student and sensei in order to empower his aerokinesis. That would have been an awesome idea if it should be more like Yoda training Luke, since the Family Guy Star Wars trilogy inspired me for that. Not the original series. I hate that. With the characters all caught up from their 2-year break, it's time to move on to the actual story. And until then, this is the Ekron Writers signing out. And I shall leave you with the Prologue movie there.
Thousands of years ago, in a battle with the fallen elder god known as Shinnok, I was responsible for the death of an entire civilization. To rid all realms of Shinnok's menace, I waged a war that plunged the Earth into centuries of darkness and banished Shinnok into a place called the Netherrealm. Now, after Shao Kahn's defeat at the hands of Earth's warriors, Shinnok has managed to escape his confines in the Netherrealm. The war is now being fought once again. Only this time, it can be won by mortals.
Did you guys see that? I hope so. Hopefully there won't be any more lag. I've been using a different program for that. So see you guys later.